Hi, I am Pedro Gonzaga from the OECD Competition Division, and we have the honor of being here today with Lars Kjolbye from Latham & Watkins, and we just came from a very interesting roundtable on competition and e-commerce. So I would like to ask you to discuss a little bit what you said about in the roundtable about the transformation of the relationships between different types of businesses, consumers, users, as a result of technology.
Okay, I'm very happy to do so. So my starting point is my time with the European Commission back in the early 2000s, where I was in the policy team, and we were working on various guidelines. And the model of business that we were looking at was what you call the value chain model, where you look at the manufacture of a product and essentially how it's being pushed down the chain at different levels until it ends up with the final consumer. And that's a very standardized model which works pretty much across every industry. And that's also why back in those days when we did guidelines like the vertical restraints guidelines, we could do a package that worked pretty much for everyone across every industry. And what is happening now is that this vertical value chain model is, I wouldn't say breaking down, but it's increasingly being replaced by a much more complex model where the product is no longer the key driver of value. It's rather many services that are packaged with a product. And that means that the way in which companies make business these days is much more diverse than it used to be. So instead of making a product and pushing it down the chain, you now offer a bundle of products and services and thereby create a user experience that aims at attracting consumers.
So if I remember correctly, you made a distinction between a value chain relationship and a value star relationship to represent this new form of relationships. And how do you think that will impact competition policy in the future, if it will or if it should impact somehow?
I think it should impact competition policy in the sense that when instead of a sort of a single product that you push down the chain, you have bundles of products and services, it means that you have many different relationships with consumers and service providers and platforms. And that means that instead of having a standardized approach to analyzing competition issues, you need to have a much more, how should I say, case-by-case analysis of looking how does a particular business model work. And the starting point of these online cases should be understanding the model. And once you understand the model, it's much easier to identify where there might be problems.
So maybe to put a very practical example that I remember you referred to, let's think of, for instance, resale price maintenance. So would you say that in one of these new business models, like a marketplace, if a seller sets the price that the product is sold in a marketplace, is this resale price maintenance, and should this be addressed as a violation of competition law?
I would say very often no. If when you say resale price maintenance, you mean the price that is charged for the product that's sold on the platform. Because in more and more cases, it's actually a manufacturer or a merchant on the platform that sells the product and therefore sells the price. What the platform does is charge a price for its service, a commission. And when you analyze competition between these different players, you want to ensure that the manufacturers or merchants that sell on the platform, that they compete with each other, and therefore that they're free to set the price at which they sell, right? But you also want to ensure that competing platforms compete with each other on the price that they charge for their services. So you also want to worry about what I would call service price maintenance instead of resale price maintenance, that the platforms can compete on the commissions that they charge for the service.
So if I understood correctly, what you're saying is that there is no problem of sellers setting the price in the platform as long as different platforms still compete with each other on the
price they charge for the service.
Okay.
Right? And that's why I think actually in the hotel MFN cases where there was concern about competition on commissions, that's actually a correct analysis. It's not resale price maintenance, but it's practices that lead to service price maintenance because they remove incentives for platforms to compete on commission levels.
Okay.
And therefore it's really unrelated to the price of the products that they sell. The price of the hotel rooms is fixed by the owner of the hotel, but the platform sets the price that it charges for its service, namely the commission. And there you should have competition.
Thank you so much for sharing those views with us. And of course, thank you so much for coming today to the Roundtable on e-commerce.
Okay, pleasure.